What's up, people? Welcome to this week's episode of the Indy and Doctor podcast. We are joined by a special guest today. It's Amrit Mann from Sky News. Amrit, get the buddy.
Very good.
How you doing?
Looking forward to this chat.
So you come from work?
It looks like it,
Yeah,
but I've come from home.
it.
Yes, this is what I would normally wear at work.
Where's the casual Saturdays like attire, man?
I wanted to, but I believe it's good to be on brand. So
Absolute lies. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
so didn't have the greatest start of my morning. So got ready nice and early.
Yeah.
And then I knew my mum was coming over from Germany for a night. So I was asked by my mum to clear my room so that they can stay.
Doesn't matter how good you get. What level high you get to. Munda doctor ban janda, munda Sky News kam karda, munda.
Give up your bedroom for your mama. That's it.
Even though.
Kamra saaf kar.
Yeah.
Okay, you're never too old to clean your room. When your mum tells you to clean your room,
Anyway, long story short, so had a lot of rubbish in my room.
Yeah.
Went down.
So it was dirty.
It was dirty.
So mum had a fair point.
But everybody's room is dirty.
Yeah, but how dirty are we talking, Amrit?
It's when somebody's coming in to stay, you've got to change it up a bit. Yes.
Yeah.
The mistake I made was I was in my bended down to collect something and partly picture. So I had to change it, which I wasn't too happy about because it was my favourite one.
You need to ask mum to sew it up.
Yeah, this one. I don't think you can bring that one.
Be on repair.
Indy, it's been written off. Right off. Insurance claim nahi honi.
Right off. Man. They're bringing that back.
Just a bit,
Have you ever had that happen at a function or a wedding or a party though?
No, luckily not. You have?
Yes.
It has happened to you. I was there when it happened.
I had to tie we were one of our friends' brother's wedding.
Right.
Like the last 5-10 minutes, like the bride is gone. It's like, it's just the lads on the dance floor now. The DJ ne gana lata. We're all old Bhangra guys, so we started proper bed ke.
Yeah.
And then we started lattan out like frog bed ke. And then I was like, Indy. And we had to go to Dolly. I was like, Indy, meri pant phat gayi. I need jacket. My jacket like tie the jacket around.
Wrap the jacket around him.
Yeah.
You're almost asking for it though.
It was bad. He was
bed?
asking for it. His band were tight as well.
Yeah.
Tight band.
It could get tight on that, but then if you start going gym, so I had those trousers for my wedding, so they were tailored for my wedding look.
Right.
And then after that, I started doing a lot more gym.
Yeah.
So, but they go get and then you're right. Then you just So now I have a rule: no bed ke. Jump theek hai.
Yeah.
You can jump as much as you want, but no bed. Bed ke dangerous.
I've been doing some deep diving into your Instagram, and I saw the daari growth was. Your daari growth has been elite,
bro.
Really?
You had nothing, and then it was like Gandalf.
It was so amazing. I was like, babyface summer in 2018.
Yeah.
And then after COVID, you just emerged with this man. I was like, how did this happen?
Lockdown de vich padne ki khada.
I've not actually had anyone say that, but yeah, thinking back, that's true.
That's exactly what happened.
I actually wanted to be longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking back when I finished GCSE, I didn't have much, so the growth has been.
Were you ever fearful like the daari was ever going to come out? You're like, is it?
Yeah, there was a point where it wasn't looking good, but Maharaj Kirpa.
Right, see the phrase? Indy, see the phrase?
I told you.
What happened?
That phrase is the get out of jail free card.
We were saying, do you know if you go to you may have this in the future, when you go to certain social functions and annoying auntie,
yeah.
But to bya nahi karna hai, right?
So you come out with that.
Right, so yes.
Yes.
What are you going to say to that?
Yeah.
But that we were talking about the awkward phase, when you start keeping your daari, obviously when it's formed, looks good.
Yeah.
But that bum fluff stage where it goes this way but doesn't go this way,
yes,
and you can't style it. There's nothing wrong with style. You're like,
you can do.
What is this? What is this?
I have to wait for it. You have to write it out.
It's a difficult stage, man. You said you want it to be longer.
I do, yeah.
It'll happen.
It's growing slowly, so good to see.
He's still young, man.
Yeah.
We got grey hairs. He's still growing.
We were trying to work out how old.
Go on.
You were.
23.
You said you're your youngest apprentice in Sky. I think you hit it at 18.
I think he's 23.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, 22 now. Yeah.
There you go. Close.
So good.
Close.
Good man. बहुत तरक्की की थी ना बंदे.
You're so young that you had your own YouTube channel.
I know.
Yes.
I tried finding your channel organically, but when you type in Amrit Mann on YouTube, you
doesn't
obviously
come
get
up.
the singer. The Banglez. So I was like, okay. And when I told people I would have an Amrit Mann, they're like, the Banglez. I was like, no.
Yeah.
The other Amrit Mann. The one who actually matters in the UK. Yeah. Yeah. Your channel was pranking your teacher, Amrit. Did not expect this from you, man.
So I started that off when I was in secondary school.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hype around it, and
Yeah.
I was really proud of the content.
Yeah, good. You should, man.
Back then. And there's actually a serious point to this where I got one of the reasons why I got my job at Sky was because of my YouTube channel.
Seriously?
The recruiting, I know, don't laugh, please. They said that.
They actually looked at it?
The recruiting, the people said it demonstrates I'm a self-starter.
Yes.
And it differentiated me from others. And that's why I'm quite proud of it, because even though I cringe at the content looking back now, it had a big part to play in my journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about the content itself, it was childish vlogs.
Of course it is, man.
Going to school, some clips which were a bit too edgy, and school asked me to delete them.
Oh, school did?
Yeah.
Oh,
but you know,
I
looking
think
back,
you got
I'm
rid of
glad
it
they
ahead of
did
the
it.
application to Sky.
So what I was careful about is I made sure those videos were
gone.
unlisted or
But I already got
privatized before I applied. But even looking back now, there are a couple of videos which I might need to log back into my account to.
Was it the one where you pranked your teacher?
No, that one's actually good. I thought that was
Clearly Sky liked
that was
it.
a more recent video.
I like that one. Yeah.
But the thing with content is when you start, like, there's no blueprint for content, right? So until you test it and do different things, you don't know, and you develop skills along the way. So they clearly, Sky must have been like, he's got, he can talk, public speaking, whatever they saw, they were like confident young man.
It was just that effort I put in on, during my spare time to do something, and others, I'm assuming, didn't, because they said that's what differentiated me. So it worked out. Yeah.
There's a video of you where you're celebrating, like, hitting, I think it's 2,000 subs.
Oh no!
On your video, and I was like, you doing that, and very mates were like, "Is that Amrit? Are you Amrit Mann?" I was like, "This is so cool."
Where was I? Was I in a room or
You
outside?
were standing on the street.
Okay, that's on Instagram. Yes,
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, this is so."
So that
cool.
was staged, right?
But that's but
you do get it.
But that's still like joy and happiness. Like, it's nice.
Yeah,
nice.
and that's part of the reason why I haven't deleted the videos. So
Keep it,
I had a
man.
prom video last day of school vlog,
Yes.
and they're memories. So occasionally I watch them back. Even my peers
Of course.
from school, they occasionally message me saying, "I've watched your video." Yeah, and 10 years down the line,
Memories.
There'll
It's
be good memories.
immortalised on
So yeah,
YouTube. Yeah.
exactly.
We have that now. I had a memory this morning from Bhangra competition in 2013. I was like, Indy, I used to speak like this. It's when I used to write things, I don't know if you guys had this phase, but you only write, but you drop letters and you think you're really cool. Like,
Yes.
Did you guys have that? Because we used to
THX?
text like that because we had character limits on text messages.
Give me
as
an
we send them.
example.
THX for thanks.
No, it wasn't that. I still
Wagwan.
do
Or like-
please.
or like
I do
Wagwan?
PLS, for example, for please.
Okay, but imagine you have a sentence and you just drop all your vowels. That's basically it. So instead of that,
Yeah.
you'd say THT.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is
that-
great. GR8.
No, it wasn't that.
Nah.
Bad, no.
See,
We were
but
basic.
they didn't have that.
But it doesn't age well, right? So I look at that now, I'm like, wow, I used to sound like a proper basic bandana.
Yeah.
I sound silly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, what else stood out on my YouTube channel?
So, I think my personal favorite is that one of the actual pranking the teacher at school, because that's Jake Paul-esque, the same way how you said.
Yeah.
When you made your channel, it's made on
Paul-esque,
the concept of being inspired by Jake Paul.
Yes.
I love how you said that, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else.
I don't think you can say that now, but
Really?
back then you could.
I would say the opposite, because back then
Really?
he was very hated, and now he's on the up, in my opinion, where he's becoming more welcomed, just because he's broken into the mainstream.
I think he's getting outed more by people for scamming.
Is Jake the Mike Tyson one or the other one?
No, that's the Mike Tyson. Yeah,
That
the
is
younger
Jake, that's
brother.
Jake, isn't
That's
it?
Logan. we're
Curly
talking
hair.
about. Yeah, Logan is the older one.
Oh, sorry,
No,
I've got them mixed up now. Yeah.
Right.
The younger one
Logan
is,
does the
is
crypto
boxer.
stuff. Yeah.
So we're talking about the younger.
The boxer. You're talking about the young one. I was on about the older one.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's
okay.
that's
Yeah,
clear.
that's
that
a big
then.
difference. I get it now. Yeah.
So yeah, I was inspired by him.
Yeah.
Actually met him in the gym during his fight with the Deji, which was his first fight.
Did you?
And that's, when you meet someone famous and then you have like a reason to really like them, sort
Yeah.
of thing.
So you had a good experience.
Yeah. It was cool.
So Indy has this thing, right? Indy's a big basketball head. And I always ask him about Michael Jordan and all these greats. And he's like, no, I never want to meet him. I was like, why? He's like, because I think he's going to be like this. And then I want to meet him. And he's not going to be like this. So I never want
It's
to meet
going to
him.
shatter my whole existence.
Yeah.
So he has this whole thing about not meeting his idols.
And
Yeah,
there's
people
so
have that,
many,
yeah.
and there's
But
so
you
many
clearly-
people who are fans that say, I met this footballer
Yeah.
and he wasn't that great,
Mm.
and it's shattered my childhood.
Yeah.
So I thought, I can't do it.
And he gave me good advice. Said,
What did he say?
just keep creating content. I told him about my goals.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I've mentioned my YouTube channel to you, which
Yeah.
worked out well. So that was good. And just generally, I was a fan of his content. So I keep in mind I was about 15, 16 back then. So
Yeah, but still,
that
you-
has a
yeah,
part
yeah.
to play. Yeah.
But you had the bravery to go and do that at 15, 16. Most kids are normally concerned about what other people are going to think of them doing.
Yeah,
15,
yeah,
16.
no, that's true.
I can't remember who our idols were at 15, 16, but social media wasn't that big. So there wouldn't be anybody close enough to me, like how YouTube is very personable, that I would have been like, oh yeah, I want to be like that. For us, I don't know, I used to watch a lot of films or like Bruce Lee, people from long time ago. What about you? Do you remember like being inspired by anyone? Like 15, 16?
Kobe Bryant, that's it.
Yeah, but again, you're not in a position where you'd actually get to.
No,
like he got to meet.
Creators weren't big like that. It was
That's
just
what I mean, right?
footballers or mainstream TV,
Yeah.
like Sky Sports. That's it.
When I was 15, 16, that was a pinnacle of the YouTube sort of crossover boxing
Yeah.
scene time. And YouTube was on the up, so it was just
The YouTube growth then
age.
was big for people. There were loads of YouTubers coming
Yeah.
out. KSI as well.
KSI,
was
huge.
Popping at that time. Yeah.
He was about to have a fight now, your boy, with the Canelo, but it's fallen through now.
It's fallen through.
Because
So
of Turkey.
yeah, Turkey looks like he's
Turkey's
got
guys.
him on a deal.
Did you
of
see the video
3
from
or 4
Turkey?
fights. Yes,
Is
where
that
he
the last
said
clip at the end?
the Disney Mr.
No.
Beast one. Or
No.
which one's
The
this?
Turkey one was really, talking about the 4-fight deal for Canelo, but at the end he
Right.
goes, "Don't mess with the lion."
Oh god.
I was like, this gangster man. This guy's got all the best in the world.
Yeah, I know.
You're
All good. What have I got my chops in there?
It's your dandruff, mate. Safi ka lagar.
Dish one. Okay, Amrit, so you work at Sky News. Why did you go for Sky as the traditional route instead of going for the Asian network? The Asian network is the traditional route. Sky's very different. How come you went down the Sky route?
The goal for me was always to go big, dream big. And I'm sorry to go back to Jake Paul here again,
Yeah,
but that's just something I learned from him
Okay.
when I met him, is to always dream big. And I feel within our own Punjabi community at times we can box ourselves and think we can only reach a certain level. And that's something I wanted to break. Just see how big I can take it. And for me, Sky News is a massive brand, and there just wasn't anything bigger than that.
How about say BBC? Why was it Sky over BBC, for example?
I applied for the BBC and
Okay.
got a role there.
Basically, whoever accepted the
Didn't it
application.
Yeah. Yeah, but Sky had the best offer.
Okay.
There are many factors. For example, Sky's based in Austerley. I'm in Slough.
Okay, so
good
geography.
commute.
Yeah, nice.
But-
It's close as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very ideal. But also, I just watched Sky the most. So
Okay.
that
So you're invested in
that had a
sense.
part to play. Yeah.
Okay.
And when you were positioning yourself in that way, did you have friends, family, people of influence around you, seniors, who were saying, "No, tu pehla ithe, Sangat TV na kaam kar ya ithe kaam kar," and then maybe one day, did you have people telling you?
I had a few in my family. I won't name them, obviously, but
Mama thiga.
Mama's kicking me out the bedroom today. Yeah.
no names. My parents were very, very supportive because they almost saw my vision. They knew what I wanted to do and saw I was quite determined to do it. But yeah, there were people in the community and in my family who were, for example, I joined Sky straight after school, so I skipped university. So even not having a
that
degree
taboo.
was a big thing.
Yeah.
For example, relatives saying, this is something you're going to regret in the long run, not having a degree, and possibly that they can be right. But then it's worked out well. Again, Maharaj Kirpa, through my apprenticeship, I've been able to get my qualification, so that's worked out fine. During my school time in year 10, I think everybody has a work experience placement where they go out somewhere.
I never had this in my school.
Oh, you didn't?
I had this, but the thing
Where
is,
did you go?
A hospital. I want to be a doctor, right? But
Yeah.
I look back at it now and I tell people who actually genuinely be doctors, like, you go
Yeah.
do this work experience. It's nothing like this, right? Real working
Yeah.
life. But I went there, and when the patients have dinner, I was like a dinner lady. I just give out the khana, and then you come back and they're like,
because you're the
can't
lowest
do-
risk job.
you can't do anything. You haven't got the buddhi to actually understand what life is going to be like working night shifts. But then they come back and they're like, right, so reflect on this. Do you think this will help you in your decision to be a doctor? And I was like, no, it absolutely doesn't.
Where did you go?
I had a
then?
positive experience. So it was Sikh channel
Okay.
in Birmingham. It worked out perfectly because it was 1 week. My sister's married there, so is based in
Birmingham?
Birmingham.
State sisters.
Very
yeah,
good.
Yeah, Oldbury. So it
Oldbury,
wasn't a long commute. I was able to stay there. And it was 2016. I think it was the time of the World Cup. And they just let me go on screen, which was great.
Yeah.
I didn't know a thing. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know how to talk. And it was
So you're
just
actually
a pleasant.
presenting?
Yeah, I was on screen for their breakfast
That's
show.
wicked.
And that was a good opportunity. So I always thanked them. And I got advice from them before I joined Sky. And they supported me, and I could have got a job at Sikh Channel, but they pushed me and said, you know, if you go to Sky, you're able to achieve a lot more in terms of reach and impact on the community, and I've been able to see that.
And within your industry of Sky, when you looked at it, were there any Sikh role models within Sky that you looked at? Do they exist?
I would say even across the whole industry, within journalism, there's nobody, and that had a part to play. I want to be a role model for the next generation, so that almost pushed me to further my career, because I want the future generation, I want more Sikh to join the industry
and see this is a viable thing you can do.
Absolutely.
And the way you say you've just championed this thing, people talk about university and it's like, well, you must go to university to be successful. Well, no, you don't. And I don't know what you were like before you joined Sky, but in this small time you've had interaction, like you speak very, very well. You carry yourself very well. You're confident. Now those skills, yes, you may pick it up from university, but if you graft, you can definitely pick it up as well. Probably a lot faster as well.
Yeah. Because I was 18 when as you know now, when I joined Sky. So I was not immature, but I had a lot of learning to do personally. Yeah. But it was great because when you're with professionals in the workplace, you change. So I saw that personal change, and it worked out great.
That's brilliant, man. There's no other. Yeah.
And why was journalism the appealing approach for you compared to, say, being on camera or being like a content creator, just in general, doubling down on that?
I just think journalism is so important.
Okay.
Just the role of a journalist is really important. I'll quote a quote from Malcolm X about the media. I've actually got it on my phone. It's on my wallpaper. You won't be able to see it because I've got a privacy screen.
Great viewing for the
TFL jar. But it's about the media, how it's the most powerful entity, how it has the power to make the innocent look guilty and the guilty innocent. Exactly. So you can take that both ways, right? So as a journalist, you've got a lot of responsibility to make sure you're telling the truth. Exactly, and that's where Sikhi comes in.
Okay.
We're always told to tell the truth, so that's something I carry throughout in my job. But that was one of the reasons. So I saw journalism as a really important role in society.
Which is what? Let's deep that. What is it about accountability for you? Like, what is journalism? No, we'll talk about what it is now, what it's become.
Yeah.
Money making.
Yeah.
But what do you think, as a purist sense, what is the function of it?
I call it public service broadcasting, and what that is something that helps or supports the public. There are many examples in my own job, which I can quote to you, that I've seen the positive impact my work has had on society.
Like what?
I'll give you an example. So last year, I came across an uncle in the Midlands. His name is Balkaur Singh Sidhu. He's well known as a Sikh activist for campaigning, just within the community. You may be aware, last year or a couple of years back now, this is through Indian media, a hit list was released, and it involved 20 Sikh activists from around the world and 6 in the UK. And that hit list was broadcast on Indian media, as I said.
Right.
There were 5 of them in the UK who weren't willing to talk. Balkaur Singh was happy to talk on camera. That was a big thing, to get his trust and speak on camera for the first time. In that, he opened up about his concerns around his safety. We broadcast that on Sky News as one of our top stories. It got a huge reach. We're talking millions. He opened up and shared his vulnerability. 2 days later, I got a call from him saying that West Midlands Police had visited his home to check his
safety
doors.
And they didn't do that beforehand?
Now, whether they knew about it or not, that's I wouldn't be able to confirm. But what we were able to do through our publication is give them a reason, or almost force them to check whether he's feeling okay. And just the excitement, happiness I that came across on that call from Balkaur Singh gave me a real boost. You know, this great fulfillment you feel when you know that your words and writing, it isn't just being read, but it's going on to help.
Actual impact
on real people's lives.
Do you view your work as seva? Is that how you view it? Or?
Yeah, there it's an element of seva. Of course, it's not nishkam, but I do view it as seva. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. There's a big point you raised. Obviously, we've got the whole thing about Diljit, Punjab 95, Bajsan Singh Kalra. And, it's obviously trying to be shut down. But if that does come out, or when it comes out, there's a big story that does need to be told. Journalism. Okay.
I'll give you another example. There was a story I did on the cost of living. And the reason why this is an important story for me is because it was one of my first articles, and it got a huge reach. We're talking in the 2-3 millions. It was picked up by Apple News. And it was around langar, the concept of langar, how more people are going to our Gurdwaras to consume langar, and them being non-Sikhs. So
homeless people, you mean? Or?
Homeless people. But just generally non-Sikhs going, because this was at the plight of the cost of living crisis when people were really sort of struggling. As you know, there are many outreach programs, so people don't just distribute langar inside our Gurdwaras now. They're out on the streets.
Langar Society.
Exactly. So I featured 2 of them, Midlands Langar Seva Society and Langar Aid up in Coventry. Featured both of their names in the article. That article got millions of views. The next day, both of them called me. One of them messaged me saying that they got more people at their outreach, more homeless people because of our publication. So that was another thing that gave me, and because that was at the start of my career, that gave me that.
That gives you a big boost.
Exactly,
big win,
it was
basically.
a boost.
Because you get to feel the real impact of it.
And Doctor, coming back to what you mean by journalism, that is what I feel is journalism having a real impact on real people's lives.
So in terms of having the impact, then, in your opinion, how impartial is Sky News as an entity? Because you mentioned earlier about truth being a big point of it. It is commonly thought that some news outlets aren't impartial, like The Sun. So how do you think Sky News stays impartial, or are they impartial at all?
I would say so. It's part of the reason why I joined Sky. They keep a neutral perspective. I've been in these editorial meetings every day, so I know what's being said. What I would say is every channel has to follow the Ofcom broadcasting code. Are you aware of what that is?
So
except for GB News, but
including GB News.
They don't follow.
Sorry, immigrants.
I won't say much about that, but they've been fined many times in the past, so they have to follow it. What the broadcasting code is, so Ofcom is a media regulator, so all broadcasters have to follow them. And we're talking ITV, BBC, GB News, all of them, Sky included. Section 5 of the code focuses on due impartiality and accuracy. It's a huge thing. You've got to be careful about what you're saying. You've got to tell both sides of the story. And sometimes people don't like that, but you've got to be balanced in your storytelling. And that's just been drilled into me from the start of my training at Sky. Whatever you do, you've got to tell both sides of the story, and it's got to be accurate.
And if you move that online, if you move that outlet online, do Ofcom rules still apply?
So that's interesting. Then that would go to IPSO.
Right.
IPSO regulate your tabloids. So that's the Sun, Mail, all of the tabloids. So that's a different regulator.
Okay.
But Sky, given their broadcast medium, they are scrutinised on broadcast visual mediums.
So
because we're broadcasting.
Is Sky governed by both bodies then, because they have such a strong online presence as well?
No, Ofcom.
Just Ofcom. Okay.
IPSO, just tabloids.
Just tabloids.
Just tabloids. Okay, fine. Sorry, Gordon, you had a question.
So say there's a big story, and you personally feel very passionate about it. How much of the let's call them the producer or the director, how much autonomy do you have in the way you express and storytell versus they're saying, Amrit, this is the nichor, this is what we want you to get across. However you get this, fine. Or is it very regimented, like read off the teleprompter? Like, how much do you have in terms of self-expression?
As a presenter, so I'm not a presenter, I'm a journalist. As a presenter, you're in the studio. You get to read your scripts before, but a lot of the time they're written by producers or editors. So their job is to pretty much read what's coming up on the auto cue. But as a journalist, I have that free reign. I am the one in charge, and I'm trusted to do the job. And that's great because I've got that NCTJ qualification. That's the National Council for Training Journalists. So once you get that, you get that responsibility in the newsroom that you don't need to be checked up on, that you're trusted to do the job.
Nice. Okay.
I'll give you an example. Another piece that I'm quite proud of. I did a live on the streets of London for 40 years of the Amritsar massacre in 1984, which took place. And in that
was big for the community. Like,
it was
massive props to you for doing that.
Thank you. And it was great because where I was placed, the crowd were going past,
walking past,
and as I finished, I was getting praise. So that was a real sense of. So I felt a lot of pride there. That was great. But coming back to the scripting of the content, it's a controversial issue. You know, there are two sides to the story, and I'm proud of myself for broadcasting both sides there. I think I did quite well there, where I was able to talk about both the concerns from the Sikh community and what the Indians have to say, but at the same time I made it quite relevant to the UK audience, because there's a UK side to it where there's allegations that the UK government had a part to play. So that's a good example of where my manager was keeping an eye on what I was going to say, but at the same time I was also concerned that I need to make sure I need to say the right thing. So I was relaying, okay, I'm going to say this. Can I get your advice as a senior? Okay. So there's always that dialogue.
Right, okay.
But there's never one of those things that, you know, you can't say this. It's because they trust me to do the job.
That was going to be my question, which is, let's say you have the concept and they're completely unaware of what happened in Amritsar in 84. Do you give them a synopsis of the story saying, this is what happened, this is the anniversary, I want to cover it? And do they say, okay, if you're going to cover it, you kind of have to show the balance on both sides?
Yeah. When pitching the story, I tell them the full story.
Okay.
But they're journalists, so they can search themselves as well. But as you know, to make their job easier or life easier, I do tell them the full gist. And then ultimately, it comes down to myself. And they always give me pointers about, you know, you should mention this or this, but it's never to censor anything or,
I was going to say, that's key. There's not saying you can't say this. Or,
it's more looking out for me so that we're doing the right job. Yeah.
And it is balanced.
In the pursuit of balance, is that sometimes dangerous? Because sometimes there is a story that is clearly doesn't need balance at all. So
Example, Holocaust.
Let's say Brexit, right? Terrible thing that's happened to the UK economy. But for some reason, whenever they have a panel discussion on it on the BBC, for example, they have to get both sides. And that angers a lot of presenters who say, why am I having somebody here to champion something that was economic harm when I don't feel like I need to, because there is no balance needed to this? So is the balance discussion sometimes not needed?
It can be. Sometimes it's frustrating, but you've just got to follow the rules. You've got to be balanced regardless of what the topic is. We can take the Ukraine war for an example. Regardless of what's happening, your perspective or your viewpoints on what's going on, you've just got to have another person who's speaking on the Russian side, because then, you know, it all comes down to Ofcom's regulation, and those broadcasters who haven't followed it have got into trouble.
So Ofcom say you have to have another perspective on the board, like legally?
It depends. So there are many forms to this. It could be a right of reply, depending on what you're saying. So that's where you give an organisation enough time to send
and you
a
say
comment.
We reached out for them and they gave no comment. You have to say that.
Exactly.
Because it says that you...
I understand. So there are different ways of doing it, and at times, there sometimes isn't a need to mention you've approached them, because when you weigh up what you're alleging or saying isn't enough for us to need another
comment from them.
Exactly. Okay. So it depends on the situation, which is why you've just got to be careful at all times. What I do always, regardless of what story it is, just do a couple checks in my head to make sure I've gone through the right procedures.
And when you have a story, what's your process in terms of research? Like how long, what's that kind of timeline?
It depends. Sky's well known for breaking and live news, so sometimes you haven't got much time to do research. So a lot of the time depends on just your natural instinct and just your news head to know, you know, what the right thing is. But if it's a big story, you get time to work on it.
Yeah,
you do.
And is that you in a team, or is that you on your laptop?
Again, it depends on the story. So I'll give you an example on a story I did most recently on sign language.
Okay.
It was a really interesting story on how there's been delays around a GCSE for sign language. It's been 10 years in the works. In 2023, the government promised that in 2025 it will come out, and now Sky News understands that they're going to take at least a couple more years. So there's some frustration. So for a story like that, I pitched it myself. I was given time to work on it. I would say I was given a couple of weeks to research it. So there was that time for me to go out and do my research. Whereas when there's a breaking story, somebody's been stabbed, for example, then we call it rolling coverage, and that's where
that's nice
the presenters in the studio, and normally there's a reporter out in the field, and they're telling you what's happening, and that's all they can do is because they're limited to
the live information
because they're on the ground.
That's
and now we're cutting across to Amrit Mann, Amrit Singh Mann, who's doing this, and in you being in the industry now, as I look in this from the outside, is there like an internal hierarchy in terms of does everybody want to be the presenter, the anchor, like versus on this? Are you smiling now? What's the tell us about that?
It's a competitive industry, and most people do want to be on screen. That's the truth.
Why? Okay. Because you've said that there's a transition between presenter and journalist. And journalism feels like such a pure thing, where you're able to go and do the research, be on the ground, go and find things out.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I feel journalism, the role itself is the most important. But then a lot of people do chase the clout,
the anchoring and the presentering,
the glamour and being on screen.
Well, now that Kay Burley has stepped down from Sky News, she was on there for decades.
36
so
years.
There's probably people clamouring after her position on TV in that spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a big shock.
Of course it was,
but big shoes to fill.
Because she did it unexpectedly.
Yes, big shoes to fill as well. So let's see how that goes. But yeah, generally, a lot of the people do chase that. It's a competitive role, and not many people end up making it.
But you and obviously you've got a long career, and you've gone to do lots of other different things. But currently, your head is all on the ground, the story. That's what you enjoy.
Ultimately, I do want to be on screen, but from the advice I've got from my colleagues, it's the longer you spend as a journalist, the better you become as a
well-rounded
reporter.
And
exactly.
Okay, that's interesting. So just coming back to that sign language research thing, you said you've got a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So in that time, do you have to be in the office? Can you just be at home? Do you go and meet people? Like, is it just completely free reign to go and do your research?
For a story like that, then yes.
And expenses are covered, like if you
well, travel, occasionally food. Yeah. You can't go to
meal deal.
Normally, go on.
I've got this Indian doctor podcast. बहुत नमी चीज है इंग्लैंड ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. I want to research a story. Germany, we have to go to Germany.
You actually get a corporate card.
Lovely.
And one of my friends jokes about it. If you have a good enough story, then you're obviously able to take them out for a dinner. So he's coming out with these random stories.
Punjab
meet in the bar.
Pay for the flight, Air India, let's go.
Oh, no, I just meant Punjab restaurant, but yeah, we can go to actual Punjab.
I was talking about going to Punjab itself.
No problem.
Has journalism today become kind of gossip? So what do you think of, say, the Piers Morgan style of interviewing, which is inflammatory, clickbait, etc.?
Yeah.
Journalism has changed quite a bit. I'll come back to a quote. It's come from a very famous investigative Russian journalist, and I was told it during my training at Sky. And it's what matters is the information, not what you think about the information.
Say it again.
What matters is the information, not what you think about the information.
It's not the perspective, the facts.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would say, just generally, the media landscape has changed, where there's now become more commentary rather than news reporting. People are more interested in discussions, and commentators like Piers Morgan, who I think is a great interviewer.
That's a really good word you use there, commentary. Because actually, when we're brushing our teeth in the morning, what are we listening to?
Commentary. On
sports, right? It's like, we know what happened on a boxing match or whatever, cricket, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on it. And just, commentary, right? It's just all commentary.
And that's one of the challenges Sky are facing, because you have channels like GB News who are bringing in big audiences because they have
TV as well.
LBC,
opinionated characters who shout loud and are able to bring a lot of people in. And then Sky being quite centric focused, not able to take sides.
Taking the middle, balanced view.
That does have a part to play to why more people are tuning in.
Are they not regulated as well? So like Piers Morgan, is he Ofcom?
He used to be on Talk TV, so now it's different. Talk TV aren't on TV, so I don't know why they're called Talk TV anymore. Anyway,
but they once were.
They were, but now they've moved to YouTube.
It's also cheaper to move everything over to YouTube than running a daily organisation.
And maybe that's why
it's not regulated. Then, sorry, or
no, YouTube isn't. So maybe that's a part to play to why he's gone to that platform. And I think maybe he does make a bit more noise there.
Less
and
rules,
able
he can say more things.
Yeah,
and he got to keep the rights of his channel as well.
Which I think
is big for him.
Yeah. No, he's done well, and he knows
what he's doing.
Exactly.
He's very aware of this.
He's a businessman. He knows how to, He knows how to make
He
money.
used to work in the most gossipy parts of media as well. He knows exactly.
He's head of a newspaper, wasn't he? Padla.
You mean the news of the world phone hacking scandal? Yeah,
yeah.
That one, yeah. Just that minor blemish on his CV.
Minor
yeah.
thing, yeah.
Anyway, who was a journalist you kind of aspire and look up to?
I didn't used to watch much journalism or news when I was young. I watched a couple
Logan Paul, that's what he's watching.
Yeah, he was watching Logan
Jake
Paul.
Paul.
Jake.
Come on,
Sorry,
guys.
Jake.
Come on,
You
guys.
were thinking about Jake Paul and KSI?
Yeah.
Those are his journalistic favorites.
A couple months before I started Sky, then I started watching the channel and just BBC and the rest.
Yeah.
So if I was to give you a journalist, there's not one who really appealed to me.
Okay.
But Sky itself, Jane Secker is a presenter. You may not know her because she likes not to be the story and has had a glittering career. Is an anchor right now, but is just so kind and has given me so much feedback. So that's something I appreciate.
Good mentors, man.
Yeah.
Very, very essential. Yeah. Okay. And what are your thoughts on the state of UK politics today?
Well, what can be said, you know?
Whatever you want to say,
long
Faji.
discussion that we can have on that, but obviously I'm limited to what I can say as an impartial journalist.
Yeah.
All I would say that there's a lot of change going on. I think just the most recent polls suggested that Reform are on top and leading. But of course, there are a good few years to go for the next election. So there's going to be a lot of change, but it's interesting to see what's going to happen. On politics, what I would say is, well, I guess it's a story. So during the election period, I was producing a series called Bench Across Britain. And what it involved was hiring a House of Commons bench, you know, the green benches they sit on. So I went to a props company to hire it out for a month. And the idea of the series was to go out to different locations across the country, take the bench. Visually, it looks good, to ask the public what change they want to see.
Interesting. Get into debate.
So, yeah. And for one of the locations, we went to Gravesend. We were thinking, what's a good place to film at?
Gravesend,
Gurdwara. You know, where else to go? So I was promised by the committee, who were great. They gave us so much access, and it was just great fun taking the bench up the stairs and all of a couple times. Uncle di back, and there were a couple of funny
Get the Sevadars to help you take
exactly. Yeah. There were plenty of Sevadars there on the day. But what was great is just within the Punjabi community, everyone wants to be on TV. So there was a line of uncles who had been called in.
Oh, they're ready.
They took days.
They were like, you want my hot take? Sit down. You come sit here, I'll give you a lecture.
Yeah, most of them taxi drivers, all retired, had taken the day off work. And
Someone sent out the broadcast message. Amrit Mann, the Sky News. Either or not.
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਆ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਾਰਡ ਵਰਕ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ.
No, but listen to, so there were 10 of them, around 10 of them. We put the camera on, started rolling. Most of them didn't know English. And I was like, my colleagues were looking at me. I'd promised them all these things that, you know, we're good speakers.
You're like, we're lions, okay? We roar. Wait till you see.
It wasn't looking good for me. And a couple of them, what's your name? That we weren't getting any response back.
As in with the camera shy? Is that
yeah, no, it's just English.
Oh, it's just English.
English, and us being an English channel, we were obviously not going to. We were keen on subtitling it, so that wasn't looking good. So we had to then, we got what we could. To the point, you know, thodi bahut the English nikal gayi si, and then we had to go to a kabaddi tournament, which happened to be a couple of days later in Southall. Similar problem there, but because of how many people there were, we were able to get it in the bag. But an interesting point on politics, and given that's what we're talking about, those who were able to talk or speak English, they just weren't sure about who they're voting for. It was, yes, we're voting for Labour, but there wasn't a reason to why. So that was an interesting...
just the default one to pick.
It was like, well, this doesn't work.
Who's the next major party?
You think about the Pradhan Mantri, PM, right? I look at it. Remember when Rishi was in power? And he had Kia every week. And then he came into power, and that day he came in, everyone's like, yeah. 2 weeks in, now everybody hates this guy. I was like, it's the most... That job is the most like.
Thing is, when you campaign for change and you don't deliver change,
Yeah,
people get angry very quickly. But then everyone wants answers.
No,
to
but
things to be
I
done
just don't
now.
think in our lifetime, in any lifetime, there is going to be one prime minister that people are genuinely happy with. Like, I think that job is you cannot make people.
No, of
enough
course
people
not.
happy.
You reminded me of another. So this same shoot here
Mm.
at Gravesend, Gurdwara, one of the uncles said, "Appa Labour nu vote pani hai." He was speaking
He just said it
English.
straight.
So there's no propaganda channel. Okay, Labour.
So this was one of them.
So good.
Couldn't speak English, so we were like, let's just do Punjabi.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them after the shoot, by the way, were saying, "Sanu dasi, when is this going out on telly?" And this is me knowing they're not going to make it.
Oh.
So I felt quite sad about it. But anyway, this uncle, "Appa Labour nu vote pani," and then we asked why, and he was like, "Appa proud ya rishi sunak da kam bahut changa karda," and I lost it. And that's when I had to translate it to my
got them mixed
colleague,
up?
and then that's when we just thought it's best to just pack up and leave.
At that point, you looked at your guy, and your guy was like,
No,
Kale, oh, conservative
it's not looking. Yeah,
"Do you tend to avoid any political stories, or is that not in your lane?"
we have a department.
I mean,
who've-
you personally though, like, could you work in that department for a story if you wanted to?
I could, but we have a award-winning
Dedicated.
team
Okay.
in Millbank. So they're very good at what they
like,
do.
like Beth Rigby and co.
Yeah, she's brilliant. But personally, I just don't have an interest in politics.
Fair.
So that's a reason too. I just don't tend to cover it. I quite enjoy domestic UK stories.
Okay, so that's your niche. If you had to,
Yeah,
be
I would say if
domestic-
I have to pick one, yeah, that's that.
And so that's you now. Like we said, you're obviously very young, 22. What's the? And it's going to change. Obviously, it'll evolve. But
Yeah.
currently thinking about it, what would be your? This is where I want to be in the industry.
To be on screen.
Yeah,
That's always been the goal, so I want to pursue that goal next. And a part of why I want to do that is because visually, I think it's just so great if somebody can see us sing on screen. I think that
So
would go a
Sarup.
long way. Yeah.
In the UK, especially, yeah, because there isn't.
I mean, if
A
you
sing
think
on
about
screen.
it, who is it in the news? And we're talking not Sikh channel, but mainstream.
Yeah, on
who
mainstream
is
TV.
it?
No.
Amrit Singh Mann.
So
Amrit Singh Mann.
that's the goal. And then
And make sure it says Amrit Singh Mann in the title when that
Yes.
happens. When that day comes,
That-
I'm gonna tune in.
that's when I've
If it
made
doesn't
it.
say the sing, I'm like, Amrit,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be calling you by what happened.
But most importantly, I just want to be a good journalist and put out
Yeah.
good stories.
Yeah,
Like the
things
ones
you
I've
advocate
referenced.
for genuinely.
Yeah.
So you said before, like you can bring stories, pitch it, but sometimes they give you things that you don't agree with, and you can say no. Or,
Yeah, a lot of the time.
yeah.
You can say no, and they're very open about that.
Okay.
But again, you're a journalist. It's not my job to be involved in the story and give my perspective. It's to tell the story and
Yeah.
do my best to tell it the right way. And a lot of the time, I would say 70% of our coverage is breaking and live, 30% is original content. And actually, just
Okay.
a few days ago, Sky announced that we're changing that because of the way media is changing. So 70% of our coverage will be premium, so content that hopefully audiences will pay for, and 30% will become breaking and live.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there's that
That is a shift,
expectation
yeah.
to change our content. But yeah, you are given stories, but as I've said, you've just got to get on with it. But that being said, if there's a story which is particularly sensitive and one
Yeah.
that you don't want to cover, you can mention it, and there's no discrimination.
Okay, based on that.
No.
You mentioned to us that you're taking a step back from covering Sikh news. Why is that?
Yeah. When I first joined Sky, I was very much, I was keen on just being the guy for Sikh news.
Yeah.
I still want to cover Sikh stories, but at the same time, if you look at the bigger picture, I think I will benefit more if I'm able to cover more mainstream topics. Almost, I don't want to pigeonhole myself
Yeah.
and be known as that Sikh guy.
Yeah.
If I am able to become more established and then cover stories, they would have a lot
More weight.
more weight.
Yeah.
And I'll actually mention Cam Singh from Sikh Channel. He actually mentioned this. He gave me advice about this when I joined Sky, and it's something I've valued since. And it's a good point where if I become that guy, I will almost corner myself and become that go-to guy, and I don't want to, because
You don't
I'm
want to be the
working
guy.
for-
Every Vasaki.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to tell us about a Vasaki.
Yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah,
year
yeah.
telling us the same story.
So it's what, and it's not me turning a blind eye or anything. There have been stories recently which I've directed to my colleagues who who do articles on a daily basis. So it's not like I'm ignoring them, and I will do the bigger ones in the future. But just again, looking at the bigger picture, I think it's important for me to cover stories like sign language and stories that aren't otherwise covered at Sky.
And did you feel like you niche down at first to show your journalistic ability, and then you can go out into the more open world of mainstream topics? Was that an intentional?
It wasn't intentional, to be honest. It's all I really thought I could do.
Okay.
I just thought, I'm the only Sikh in the newsroom. It's a good opportunity for me to talk about or raise awareness on my community. But yeah, it's just now looking back, it's a thought I had.
How was taking mum and dad into the studio the other day? I saw that picture, man. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I've never seen them smile so much. So it was really good. Yeah.
One of those.
And actually, my dad's not stopped talking about it since. So whenever somebody's coming,
he sent that picture to everyone.
Yeah. Photos. I don't know.
He owns Sky.
And actually,
that's what it becomes.
I got a photo sent back to me, and it said forwarded many times.
Yeah,
which means it's gone everywhere.
Means it's gone everywhere.
So,
bro, Punjabi people add so much hyperbole. So my nanny in Patiala, right? During COVID, there was a photographer contacted me, said we want to do a COVID shoot. It won this article, went all the way around England, this British Journal Photography, whatever. Anyway, so it was on this magazine. She's got in Patiala. People come to my house in Patiala. My nanny tells people he cured COVID. And I'm like, nanny, I was one doctor in COVID, and you're saying I cured COVID. That's a big difference there. Yeah. But then now you're going to be the owner of Sky News. That's
Do you get a free Sky package with your benefits at work?
A great question.
Good question.
Yeah, how do we get it? Second question.
No. Does he get it first? Because Micah Richards said he didn't get it.
Yes.
Working at Sky. Sorry, no. Ramesh said he didn't get it.
Yeah.
His face is on the side of the side.
Yes. I saw that. That was pretty funny. So I became staff in August, and that was the first time I was able to get those benefits. Before then, I was on a fixed term contract for 3 years.
Right.
All you get then is Now TV, so just the app.
£5 a month.
Exactly.
Bro, it's £5 a month.
Yeah, I'll take it.
But now,
listen, freebie's a freebie. I'll take it.
Oh my god!
But now you get the full Sky Q package. So
yes.
Do
you get the multi-room in that?
The family, the friend, the discount.
Do you get the multi-room in that as well?
Sorry?
Do you get the multi-room in that?
Man knows all the lingo, didn't he?
Yes, you do. You do. You have
£15 per box. That shit.
Yes,
that's what I'm asking.
I've just downgraded, man. I was like, so see, every year I get to my renewal, and I'm like, it's a whole lot.
So is that every month you pay £15?
Extra on top of your package.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
to have it in different rooms.
So I paid £15 just for the installation for an extra box. So
one-off.
now I've got them in every room. So yeah, we've got 4.
But it's per room now they charge.
Yes, yeah.
But for you, not for you.
He gets
not for you.
Yeah. So that's
I feel the key on that.
Good move.
So we'll ask about that later.
We'll ask about corruption at Gurdwara is a big topic I wanted to ask you about. Yes. So will you use your journalistic skills to expose and take them down? Because we can be a part of the sting operation if you need us.
Yes, if you need plans.
We can be undercover cohorts. I'm in London. He can be in the Midlands, Bandar.
Look, when you say corruption,
where's the money really going? You know, where's all the best really going?
It's a big topic, but I think it's a serious matter.
It is,
right? It's not really a laughing one because it's a Sangat's money.
No, I agree.
This is a serious channel, okay?
That wasn't direct.
No, this is a serious topic.
It is.
It does bother me how this happens so casually.
I think what annoys me is, and I got this from Harjab Bangal. I was watching his program, and there was this whole hoo-ha about the Willenhall Committee being involved in a case with Ronan. Ronan
Singh Kanda. Yeah.
Yes. And he mentioned something, and it stuck with me, and it was that our committees should be the top people, as in the top people in the community, whereas when you think about it, it seems like they're at the bottom of the pile. Yeah.
It's a popularity contest.
Well, no. Popularity is one thing, but we looked at this and we thought, yes, in an ideal world, what you're saying is true. These are unpaid positions. When you have your own life, your own responsibilities, great. If you have the time and you can create it, and we get the best minds of think tanks who are running these committees, great. But actually, when you look at it, who has the availability to be at the Gurdwara like multiple hours a day? Every day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And fine, but if you incentivize it, I talked about this. I was like, if you had a proper vetting process, you paid Gyania, you paid people.
Gyania are paid.
No, but if this is a separate point now. I was talking to Kenny's my brother-in-law about the quality of Gyania. Like if you look at what they paid, if you paid them a higher premium, right? You incentivize this. Like back in the day, being a Gyani was a very highly well-respected position. People come for you for life advice. That does not happen anymore. right? Same with the committee. If you had people incentivized to do it and they were paid properly, the quality you're going to attract is going to be better. At the moment, it's just, so you're right, we should, but who's going to do the work? Are we doing the work? We're not in position. We're trying to graft.
It's a good point. But I'm concerned the message might go to the wrong people. And no, 100%. If you've got the right people on board, they should be paid. But these days, there's no transparency, and it does hurt me because it's the future generations which will be impacted. And
so, what do you suggest should change?
It's a tough one. I don't think there's a solution because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of people who have jobs and aren't able to commit. But personally, I think a mixed approach where there's your normal uncles who are retired and want the
seva, and they have the time.
So if you have a team which are on board who can be at the Gurdwara as much as you need.
Physical presence.
Yeah, physical presence, because that's the main issue, I think, is that. And then you have your
strategic
your youth who are able to, run the social medias and everything else, the financial side of things.
And the offering, right? Like if there are certain Gurdwara who are excelling in this, where this is a deeper question now, which is if we take the spirituality, the Santhya, the Sikhi stuff away from the Gurdwara, and we say what are the other functions of the Gurdwara, more social sides. So you see a lot of Gurdwara now offer like mixed martial arts, other classes, Bhaja, Kirtan, whatever, but bringing kids there for whatever reason. They're all good reasons. And then Holly, when you like going to Gurdwara for that reason, then your prem will develop towards Sikhi, Gurbani, all those things. But I have found that obviously that's not widespread. But there are some Gurdwara doing that very, very, very well.
Some are smashing it, you've got to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always thinking, how can we make Gurdwara more accountable for what they do when it comes to finances, expenditure? Like Khalsa Aid, their spreadsheets, their books are clean. Everything is written out perfectly. But I know that's intentional, and people are, I don't know if it's a paid position to be on those charities or not, but they do get people in that are the best of the best to make sure that everything is smooth and well done. Because we get that at Gurdwara in general. I don't know.
So Khalsa Aid, for example, they're under the Charity Commission, so you've got to have that transparency. But what I would say, a lot of Gurdwaras are Charity Commission. Correct. So to be fair, they do have to prove their documents. So there is that
a process, regulation.
There are the same checks taking place. But ultimately, you've got to have trustworthy people, because who knows what's going on behind the scenes? Anything can happen.
But like Indy said, if you do want to do a story,
thing. Listen, we are here, man. We are ready.
Can do it.
Ready.
I noticed something. This is slightly tangent thing, but for example, your story where you're covering I think the Karan Aujla thing, his story. The way you introduce, like, it's all TV journalists have this way of coming in. And this morning I was having breakfast in Indy, and I said, if you listen to stage secretaries in Gurdwara, they have the same rhythm. Aj asi baithe haan te today Sky News will tell you. And I was like, these guys have clearly been looking
at the stage sec here. I think.
Listen, I think everyone says it to him. Every time he does the impression, it's so spot
looking
on.
like it. Yeah.
ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਬਲੌਕ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਏ
yes
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜੀ
Mercedes good
02 ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਮੂਵ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਪੁਲ ਚ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ.
He loves it, man. He loves it. How did you learn the journalist voice?
Who teaches you that?
Who taught you that?
It's on the job. You don't get training, so it's something you have to learn.
You all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit. Give us a bar. Like the bit when you come on and you say, Amrit Mann. Do the.
Well,
you're here with Indian Doctor today.
Hello, welcome to Sky News. You're watching Indian Doctor. My name is Amrit Mann, and I am looking forward to this conversation.
Breaking news.
Breaking. Look, I would say you are changing your voice, so you are putting something on.
You are kind of putting bass on it.
Yeah. And you mentioned this Karan Aujla report that I did.
Yeah.
I actually got advice from one of the presenters, and I'm so glad. Her name's Saima Mohsin. She's a Punjabi Pakistani presenter, and another person I look up to. And she said, if you listen back to it, your voice isn't matching what you're saying. It's meant to be a good, positive piece, but you've got this serious journalistic voice.
Okay.
And when I was listening back to it, she was right. So now I've taken that feedback on, and
So depending on the story.
Yeah. I try to adapt myself accordingly. So you it's a very much a learning process. The more you watch the news, the more better you get at the job.
On that video, your sign off question for you. So when you're saying your own name, in that one I noticed you had Amrit Mann.
Yep.
Is that intentional, or do you want it to be Amrit Singh Mann? And
Yeah,
what's the?
It's a good point. The first piece I did, I considered, what do I do? How do I pronounce it? Because I want it to be consistent. Ultimately, the presenters read your name, and I always think they're going to say Amrit and Mann. Amrit Singh Mann then would be a U, and then a double A, mine's double N. So there's all those challenges about how to do it, right? Yeah. So I just think it's, easiest. You're going to speak English, just
anglicize it.
Make it, yeah. And it's you can talk about both sides of the debate.
Exactly. I'm just asking
some
your take
people
on it.
prefer to keep it authentic, but I just think it's easier for everybody to have one way of saying it. Yeah.
Very early on in our podcast, we would say the word Sikh until somebody started saying this.
Sikh.
Please, can you say Sikh?
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, and I was like, okay, yeah. Fair.
And I've done that now.
And now we have, we actually make a point of it. Yeah. So, but you're right, consistency. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And when it's a name, it's a personal thing. I think it's what you prefer, right?
How did you land the interview with Karan Aujla?
It was through his manager, so Gav Catalyst.
Okay.
He had just joined the team quite recently. I got to know Gav through Steel Bangles, so we did a piece.
You did a piece with Steel Bangles?
Yeah. So this was...
Bro, man's connected.
That's huge.
So this was for the piece we did on Sidhu Moose Wala a year before.
I'll come to that in a sec.
So he was he was interviewed in that piece. So yeah, it's just connections. You know one person, and Gav has done very well to become Karan Aujla's manager. It was a long process. There was a lot of back and forth about whether this interview would take place. He was on tour.
Are we talking like months in advance they reached out to you?
I reached out to him.
Okay, nice.
There was that interest from them, which is why they said yes. He doesn't normally do many interviews, especially in person. And the funny thing, they were getting requests from the likes of BBC and everywhere. We were going to do the interview in Langham, the hotel.
Yeah.
His room was quite a mess. We come back to this situation, so they preferred preferred to do it outside.
Okay.
And where outside was the square outside the BBC broadcasting house.
Yeah.
So I was like, we better get this done
Sky
over
News,
quickly
here,
before they get
BBC.
the camera out. So yeah, that's how it worked out. And I've got to give them the props because they recognise I'm a Punjabi journalist, and that's why they did it.
Is that why you versus going with any of the other?
I think so. That's what they said. Yeah.
Fair play, man.
So you've got to give them the props. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, man.
And was that interview trimmed down a lot? Because it really felt quite rushed when it was aired.
Yeah. I wouldn't say rushed because we had a week to work on it. As in,
I mean, rushed in terms of the airtime it got.
Look, that's always the case. Even my parents, whenever I'm telling them I'm going to be on telly tomorrow,
they're thinking like,
bro, they think I'm working for Sky Documentaries. I was like, I work for a news station, and they're no longer than 3 minutes.
I love that.
And that's the one thing I have it's a struggle, cutting down a half an hour interview into. I think we used maybe 40 seconds because we're not just going to use that. There's another voice we had Punjab Radio on there. So that's exactly. So there's a real challenge there. The interview was half an hour. So that's the main thing is, getting the best lines in. Yeah. But there was so much other great stuff which we weren't able to include.
Will that ever be aired, that full 30 minutes?
No, it should be.
Because you could put that up on YouTube and it would get hundreds of thousands of views.
Are you allowed to?
No, I'm not on about yours. I'm on about Sky. If Sky put it up on theirs,
yeah.
But I think also I've got to ask Karan's team as well because we've agreed on, a certain amount of the interview going out. So I've got to get permission from there. I could have put it out. It's just something I prefer not to do because we agreed to do this.
How did you find him as a person?
Oh, great. He's down to earth. Spoke really well. I don't know if you saw a clip that went out. I shared it on my story because there was a delay for this piece. I just thought could get the community excited a bit, but it backlashed. It was quite funny. So the clip I put out was on Slough, We
Yeah.
were just candidly talking,
Oh, yeah,
bit
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
small talk going on, and I just happened to say that Slough's run down, and
Listen,
next minute
you live there,
UB1,
you can say
UB2
it.
came
Oh.
in and clipped that up. And some of the comments were great. It's like one journalist who doesn't lie, he's telling the truth and all that.
It's a shithole.
But yeah, it was funny.
Oh.
Just some of the comments. I actually was part of the Slough Youth Parliament, so I'm a big advocate of Slough. But
Of course.
I was just telling
He's
the
got
truth.
skin in the
you
game
know?
and he lives there. He's been a part of the local
Yeah.
community.
Unfortunately, ਭਾਜੀ
You can say it.
Ghetto करने ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ.
Yeah,
He can say it, man.
and that got a lot.
Everyone's
of
got an
views.
opinion though.
Yeah.
This is the thing, right? Like you say something, and we were saying. I said it this morning. I said our following is at that point now where Indy before we could say pretty much anything, and it's the reason why we didn't get. No one was looking at it. There's no visibility. Now people who have seen us for a long time, even they will start commenting on stuff
Yeah.
in ways I don't expect. I'm like, whoa.
Yes.
But the conversation is so nuanced. But people expect it to be just black, white, black, white.
Exactly.
And it's not.
Something I've seen, the more better I've become as a journalist, more well known, the more scrutiny and comments I've been
It comes
getting.
with the territory.
Yes. People
Exactly.
expect you to think in every way that they think
Exactly.
on every
Yeah.
topic, and you just like, it doesn't work.
It
like
just
that.
comes to a point where you just
You don't
you,
care.
you shouldn't care.
Yeah.
You've got to be thick skinned and just get on with it.
And when you had the conversation with Sidhu's dad, what was that like? So you got the introduction, as you mentioned, through Steel Bangles. Can you shake us through
So
that?
that was through his family friend Sandy Joya.
Okay.
So that was a different connection. We were able to talk to Steel Bangles through Gov, but the Sidhu's father was through Sandy Joya. It was great because I looked up, or still look up to Sidhu quite a bit, so it was quite a surreal moment. We met at a restaurant a couple of days before the filming because they were out in Gravesend living there for a little while. It was just very much on my mind to be as authentic as possible and not come across as somebody who wanted to exploit them, because that's something that has happened to
It's
them.
easy to do.
That happened on Asia, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to talk again to UK media, given their experience. And it was very much a process of gaining their trust and letting them know that we're not here to
Trip and muck or
Exploit
anything.
yeah, exactly.
What was their? What is it they wanted to do with that piece from their point of view, not your point of view?
They wanted to raise awareness on how slow the case was going.
Mm.
And that's our top line. He said Sidhu's father was able to say that if the case carries on at the pace it's going, he's going to pass away. That was a strong line we were able to lead with. But yeah, it was very much on my mind to make sure that we don't get on the wrong side. Even when we were at the restaurant, I didn't ask for a photo, even though I really wanted it. Stuff like that.
That's very respectful of you.
Very respectful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. And why did Sidhu have such a big impact on your generation, in your opinion?
I think he...
Because we missed this. We didn't
Really?
get that same level of impact because we're adults at the time.
Interesting.
So on
It
his
was-
rise,
it was
to
big,
us, it
but-
was just to us it was another artist that was
Right.
making it big. We're like, great.
It's not like
But
Logan
for
Paul
you guys, it was
Yeah.
way different.
Within the youth, there was that buzz. It was because of his music, the sort of beats he was
Dropping,
on,
yeah.
the hip hop sort of drill style beats. But also culturally, he was an icon because he spoke up for the community quite a bit. For me, it was because of the level he took his bug at. Mainstream, we're talking the highest level, represented, didn't move out from his bin. It was that authenticity. You were able to relate to him. That was why.
When he went back to India and he got involved in politics, what were your thoughts on it initially when he made that leap?
Not surprising because
Really?
his parents have had links with political parties.
Right.
So I see why that had happened.
I know what you're asking. You're. This is hindsight, though, but we look. He's killing it. The question almost is like Lord ki sigi.
Yeah.
Just like, what's in it for you?
No.
I remember as soon as
What
it
was the
happened, I
need?
just thought, why are you doing this?
You're killing it. Everyone likes you. You've got everything. Just be an artist.
Why
But
go into one of the most unlikable jobs in the world?
coming back to it, but then again, he obviously clearly felt so passionate about change, and now he's got influence, and now he can use that influence for something bigger than just music.
And
But
I'm
the-
sure there was that pressure as well. Maybe he did want to get into it, but there were others who saw how big of a deal he was.
And they could use him for
That if we
that.
can use him, that it'd be
Yeah.
great for them.
Yeah. Okay. And Punjabi music glorifying drugs and alcohol. I know you had a point you wanted to raise on this. What's your thoughts?
It's a big thing where it's that cultural transition into religion and Punjabi music. I think you've just got to be really careful about it. And with the way the youth are going, it's quite worrying because.
So I was wondering this because so when we were researching for this specific point, I was when we were growing up. So the big songs of the day, Aaj hor peen nu ji karda, daru pee ke, like still bangers that come on, right? But then, like I listen to Punjabi music now, but maybe probably not as much as I used to. Is it so for you guys now? Is it still is still songs about shrab and drugs?
There are. They're quite commonly mentioned.
It's
I
still
would
quite
say, yeah, they are. The Glacier and
it's still a
even Diljit songs. They're quite common, I would say.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of that song.
What? Banjdara?
Not Banjdara.
Beg.
Patiala Peg. Peg. Yeah.
Den Beg. No, that's a...
Yeah, Shari Man.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just something I've not been a fan of, given how bad of a thing I think alcohol is.
Do you think Punjabi music is as popular if they're not talking about that stuff?
That's the question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Listen, journalism.
I
know. You're going to ask the right questions. Piers Morgan Singh. Okay?
Yeah.
Do not wear that proudly, mate.
What did I get? Got called on the two ones. Andrew Tate Singh?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, no.
No, that's not good, bro.
Potentially, I guess they have more chances of being played on the dance floor. So there could be a part.
I think there's more mainstream impact there.
Yeah.
Because the way culture is today, there is even mainstream culture. A lot of people love talking about alcohol, drugs.
Nasha,
Nasha, that's the
However,
word,
there is the opposite side of this, which is people are starting to stop drinking at like a bigger rate now. Getting drunk in the new generation is not as common, and it's not as stylistically in line with what
it's a
they want
perception
to
of what is cool now. That's what's changed.
which is interesting. So maybe they might make songs about being sober. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that catchy?
Well, remember the other point we made? So we did a clip recently about this boiler room and about how especially people who don't really speak Punjabi don't know what's going on.
Yeah, just
so actually, if the beat drops,
then
it doesn't matter what we're talking about, right? So the clip is Raf Safira, and he's talking about Nabe Sher, the Kanjiri Margi, and everyone's there like this. Bro, do you know what the line is? Do you know? And you touch it there, which is fine, but you like it because of the beat, not because of what's been said.
Yeah, but I think my problem is that for the Punjabis who do understand the lyrics, is it promoting them or is
In
it
the best light
promoting
possible.
Exactly? And again, coming back to Sidhu, that's why I admired him so much, because he stayed away
was
from
lyrically
those
advanced.
lyrics.
Yeah. So advanced that my Punjabi isn't great, but I look at the translation. I'm like, he's saying this.
Yeah.
I can't keep up, man.
It's taken his death for actually people to praise his music. Like we do a lot of artists, like when they've gone, you look at what he was actually saying, what he stood for, and you're like, oh, this isn't, you're right. It's not just
Everyone gets immortalized.
Daru
after they
Pike,
pass
like
away.
it's not about that, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, big.
Man. And Amrit, last question. After you did the interview marking the 40th anniversary of 84, were you ever called a Khalistani or anything like that, or any negative words after?
Yeah, on social media.
And how do you handle that?
You've got to ignore it, that's all. And there's not been a physical threat at this stage, and hopefully there isn't. But potentially there can be, and that's when I've got to be worried, I guess. But on social media, as journalists, we've just got to expect them, and that was one story which I knew would trigger comments, and it did. So all I can do is ignore them. And it's just me as a person, you've got to be thick-skinned. It's just, I know it's hard, but it's the job I've chosen to do. So at the same time, I've got to accept that.
Is it seen as like a badge of honor? You're like, oh, you finally got your first one. Nice, like amongst journalists, because it's so common now.
Yeah, it's a positive thing. If anything, it almost proves
People
that
care.
you're doing good
It
work.
proves you're doing good.
Exactly.
And they're engaged and they're
that is being it's getting
obviously you're not trying to trigger people. That's not obviously the point of your
No.
work. But at least if it forces people to look at this thing. We've talked about this a lot, this idea that it's loosely thrown around now, this whole thing going around the UK about Emergency, the film.
Yes.
Kangana Road.
Yeah.
And this idea that, if you start to what's the word I'm looking for? Protest. Protest equals your Khalistani. It's like, well, why are you equating those two things? The right to protest is the right to protest.
I have to be very careful with my career,
yeah.
so that's why I'll come back to that point about impartiality.
Yeah.
Regardless of what story I do, I make sure I do the right checks so that
And you can present both sides.
there's no complaint after.
Yeah.
Do you ever get a little bit angry about how the government always promises 6x every election? So last election they said we will do a full inquiry into the UK government's involvement into 1984, and then a few weeks ago they just dropped it. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Every election cycle, the same conversation happens, and we always fall for it.
We can get used, yeah, that potentially, definitely.
For the vote.
And that's where important organisations who campaign and do political lobbying come in, because it's their jobs to make sure that they're holding the government to account.
Like
there are many, like Sikh Network, Sikh Federation.
Okay.
And that's their role, is to connect with MPs, make sure that they put on their agenda that you've promised one thing and you've not done
delivered, basically. Yeah. And why do we allow ourselves to fall for it every time? Is it the hope that kills you?
What, are we talking?
Yeah, like Sikhs, yeah.
There's a sense of, I think, as a community, we don't care enough, because if we did, then there'd be more noise about it. I just don't see
more
there's
consistent noise. I think we create noise. And then we burn out.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's right.
I pledge orange, Rajona.
Yes.
We did it.
Yeah.
We're unified.
Yeah.
Will Juggy ever be free?
Another good example there. And it just, consistency is hard, because the other side now, I think, just wait them out. Create some noise elsewhere. They'll forget about this.
Yeah.
And that's it. Let's just move on to something else.
So when it was the 40th anniversary of 84, there was a lot of talk about it. 2 weeks after, silent.
But that's how
that's
it
how
is,
news
right?
is, right?
With news, one day
he called it, man. I remember the day the Ukraine war broke out. We were walking. I was walking. I was on a walk, and I was to Indy. I was like, "Wow, this is actually happening!" Like they're bombing Ukraine. And Indy said, 2 weeks, man. No one's gonna care.
And it was right.
Yeah. And I was like, the news is just. You're right. So fast paced.
It's a sad truth. Yeah. One day it could be the biggest story. Next day everybody's forgotten. But it's just the way it is.
Just the way
every time. Amrit, thanks for joining us, bro. Do you want to tell people how they can find out more about you and where they can find you?
I'm on Instagram, Amrit S Mans. That's Amrit S Mans. The reason Mans is because that was my YouTube channel.
Was
Bad Man's, isn't it?
So yes,
what's the YouTube channel?
Well, Big Mans.
Tell people the YouTube channel to find you.
So it's Mans Broadcast. That's MANNZ.
Yeah.
Videos will be becoming private today.
So
catch.
So what? It's going to be an empty channel?
No, there will be some, but I've just got to go back to see
You're
how
going
it's
to comb
looking.
through it again.
Yeah.
When you collaborating with Jake Paul?
Look, that's a big interview I want to.
Yes.
So that's when I think I've made it, but I'm eyeing that one up, and whenever that happens, I'll be proud.
I'm going to let you know right now. You've made it. You're with us.
Yes. And what I would say, for those who are interested in getting into journalism, I'm very keen on helping those who want to break in. So I'm on LinkedIn, Amrit Singh Man, so I can be approached on that.
People go, make sure you do that. We'll see you guys next week in a bit. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the rest of our episodes here, and don't forget to subscribe here. We'll see you guys on the next one.